Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fellow dreamers, today I stand before you to talk about something that touches the very core of who we are as individuals. It's about the choices we make, the battles we fight, and the dignity we sometimes let slip away without even realizing it. We live in a world where society often tells us that we must prove ourselves in ways that don't serve our own spirit. There's pressure to fit into molds, to act in ways that please others, to be someone we are not, just to gain approval or affection. But I want to ask you, and I want you to ask yourself, at what cost? You see, dignity is not a bargaining chip. It's not something that should be traded, molded, or adjusted to fit into someone else's idea of what you should be. Dignity is your essence, your strength, your pride, your truth, and it is something that once lost is incredibly hard to regain. We are all human. We fall. We make mistakes. But even in those moments of weakness, we must never forget who we are at our core. No matter how hard the world tries to push you into a corner, no matter how tempting it may seem to change yourself to fit someone else's narrative, your dignity must remain untouchable. Imagine a life where you stand tall in your own shoes, unapologetically yourself. A life where your choices reflect your values, your beliefs, and your worth. That is a life worth living. But all too often, we sacrifice that. We let go of the very things that make us proud of who we are simply to gain a little more attention, a little more love, or to avoid discomfort. But here's the truth. If you have to sacrifice your dignity for anyone, whether it's for love, approval, or acceptance, it's not worth it. True love, true respect doesn't ask you to give up your worth. It doesn't demand that you erase parts of yourself that make you unique. Real love uplifts you, honors you, and embraces you just as you are. We have to stop normalizing the idea that sacrificing our dignity is a path to happiness or success. That's a lie. Real success comes when you learn to hold your ground, when you refuse to compromise your self-respect for anything or anyone. Remember, your value is not up for debate. It's not for sale. It is your birthright. So stand tall, my friends. Hold on to your dignity with everything you've got. Let your heart be kind, but let your self-respect be unshakable. And never, ever, for any reason, allow someone or something to make you feel less than the incredible person you already are. Sure, and here's an expanded version of Kino now. Dignity is non-negotiable. It's your essence and strength. Dignity in its purest form is the internal compass that guides us through life, helping us remain grounded in our beliefs and values no matter how chaotic the world around us might become. It is the intangible force that fuels our sense of self-respect, self-worth, and ultimately our humanity. Dignity doesn't shift with the winds of approval or criticism, nor is it something that can be bent to fit someone else's desires or expectations. It is a reflection of who we are at our core, our unshakable foundation. And the most important thing to understand about dignity is this: it is non-negotiable. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by standards set by others, whether it's social media, our peers, or even family and friends, it becomes all too easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We begin to chase after external markers of success, approval, or love. We seek validation, sometimes at the cost of our very identity. In these moments, it's easy to forget the truth that dignity is not something we should ever sacrifice to fit into someone else's mold. The strength of our dignity is rooted in the quiet moments where we make decisions that reflect our values and beliefs, even when the world pushes us in a different direction. It is the quiet courage to say no when we know something isn't right for us, to stand firm in our truth when everyone around us is trying to convince us that we should be different. Dignity asks us to honor ourselves by recognizing our worth, by respecting our boundaries, and by never allowing our identity to be compromised. We've all been in situations where we've been tempted to compromise our dignity, maybe to win someone's approval, maybe to fit into a particular social group, or maybe to avoid conflict. But when we make these compromises, we often feel a deep sense of unease, a sense that we've lost a piece of ourselves. This is because deep down, we know that dignity is not something that can be bartered or exchanged. It is something that must be protected at all costs. The reason dignity is so vital is because it is the very foundation of our self-worth. When we lose our dignity, we also lose the sense of respect we have for ourselves. Without dignity, we become vulnerable to the whims of others, allowing their opinions and judgments to dictate how we see ourselves. Our worth becomes externalized, and instead of being rooted in our inner strength, it becomes dependent on others' perceptions. This is dangerous, because it opens the door to manipulation, exploitation, and abuse. Take a moment to reflect on the times when you've made choices that went against your values, or when you've let someone convince you to behave in a way that wasn't authentic to who you truly are. How did that feel? Likely you felt small or diminished, or maybe you felt disconnected from yourself. That's because in those moments, you sacrificed a part of your dignity. You allowed someone else's desires or expectations to take precedence over your own self-respect. And while it might have provided temporary relief or approval, the cost was far too high. Dignity is not something you can simply pick up and put down whenever it suits you. It is an integral part of your being, and once it's compromised, it can be difficult to regain. It's like a bridge that, when damaged, requires careful and intentional work to repair. But in many ways, the damage is never fully undone, and we carry the weight of those compromises with us for a long time. The scars of these moments can affect our self-esteem, our relationships, and our mental health. And this is why we must understand that dignity is something we must never take for granted. Your dignity isn't something that depends on anyone else's opinion of you. It doesn't matter how many people like or dislike you, how much attention or love you get from others. The true measure of dignity lies in your ability to remain true to yourself, to honor your beliefs, your values, and your worth, even when it's difficult. When you live in alignment with your dignity, you are living in alignment with your truest self. And there is a power that comes from that, a power that no external force can diminish. To protect your dignity is to protect your personal integrity. It means acting in ways that honor your principles, even when faced with temptations or challenges that might try to push you off course. It means saying no when you need to, standing up for yourself when you feel disrespected, and never allowing others to manipulate or control you. The strength of your dignity is what allows you to walk through life with your head held high, no matter the circumstances. But protecting dignity doesn't mean that we always have to be perfect, that we should never make mistakes, or that we should never be vulnerable. Dignity doesn't demand perfection. It simply demands honesty and authenticity. It asks that we be true to who we are, and when we do make mistakes, that we take responsibility and learn from them. The dignity lies not in never faltering, but in how we carry ourselves in the face of adversity. It is in our ability to rise after falling, to stay grounded after being knocked down, and to remain true to ourselves, even when the world seems to be shifting beneath our feet. One of the most beautiful aspects of dignity is that it doesn't require recognition from others. It doesn't need applause or validation. When you live with dignity, you aren't seeking praise from the outside world. Rather, you are seeking to honor your own heart and soul. The way you carry yourself in private when no one is watching is just as important as how you behave in public. Your dignity is something that you carry with you always, in every interaction, every decision, and every step you take. The strength of your dignity can inspire others. When you choose to protect your own dignity, you show others that it is possible to do the same. Your courage to stand in your truth becomes a beacon for others who may be struggling to find their own. It sends a message that you do not need to compromise who you are to gain the approval or affection of others, and that you're worthy of love and respect simply because you exist. But what happens when we let go of our dignity, when we compromise it in the name of love, acceptance, or success? The consequences are far-reaching. When we choose to ignore our own dignity in order to please others, we send the message that we are not worthy of respect. And in turn, we open ourselves up to being disrespected. When we stop honoring our own boundaries and needs, we create space for others to overstep, manipulate, or mistreat us. The more we tolerate these behaviors, the more we internalize the belief that we don't deserve better. And the cycle continues, reinforcing the idea that our dignity is something we can trade for approval or affection. This is why we must be vigilant in protecting our dignity. It is not something we can afford to give up, not even for a moment. It is not negotiable because it is the bedrock of who we are. When we lose our dignity, we lose a part of ourselves, and that can be one of the most painful experiences we can endure. To regain that dignity, we must first recognize its worth and stop allowing it to be compromised. Remember, your dignity is yours and yours alone. It cannot be taken from you without your consent, and it should never be given away in exchange for anything. It is the essence of who you are, and it must remain intact, regardless of external pressures or temptations. You are worthy of respect, of love, and of being treated with honor, not because of anything you do for others, but simply because you are you. The next time you are faced with a situation where you feel tempted to compromise your dignity for someone else's approval or for the sake of comfort, remember this: dignity is the one thing that, once lost, can never fully be regained. It is the cornerstone of your self-worth, and it is worth protecting at all costs. Never compromise your self-worth for external validation. We live in a society that constantly measures our worth based on external factors: how we look, what we own, who we know, and how well we perform in certain areas. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we are bombarded with messages telling us that our value is tied to what others think of us. Social media reinforces this notion, presenting a distorted reality where people's worth is quantified by likes, comments, and followers. But here's the truth. Your self-worth can never and should never be determined by the opinions or validation of others. Self-worth is an internal foundation. It's the deep, unwavering understanding that you are valuable simply because you exist. It doesn't fluctuate based on circumstances or the approval of others. It's a constant, rooted in your essence, and it has nothing to do with external measures. When we begin to seek validation from outside sources, we place our self-worth in the hands of others, giving them the power to define who we are. This is dangerous because no one else can truly understand your worth except you. No one else can measure the value of your heart, your dreams, your struggles, and your unique qualities. It's natural, of course, to seek approval or recognition from others. As humans, we are social creatures, and we thrive on connection and belonging. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel appreciated or loved. However, the danger arises when we start to believe that our value is conditional upon receiving this approval. When we place our self-worth in the hands of others, we allow ourselves to be constantly at the mercy of their judgment, and this can be deeply harmful. We start to change ourselves to fit into their expectations, to gain their approval, or to avoid their disapproval. We adjust our behaviors, our appearance, and even our values, all in the pursuit of external validation. This is a slippery slope. The more we compromise our authenticity to gain approval, the more disconnected we become from who we truly are. We begin to wear masks, pretending to be something we're not in order to fit in or gain acceptance. But wearing a mask is exhausting. It's not sustainable. And eventually we begin to feel empty inside because we're no longer living as our true self. The key to maintaining your self-worth is to stop seeking validation from others. This doesn't mean you should become indifferent to the feelings or opinions of the people around you. It simply means that your value should not be determined by them. Your worth must be rooted in your own sense of self, not in how others perceive you. You are worthy of love, respect, and admiration simply because you are you, not because of anything you've done, not because of any external achievements, and not because of anyone else's approval. When you internalize this, you become immune to the external forces that try to tell you otherwise. Think about the moments in your life when you've compromised your self-worth in exchange for validation. Perhaps you've said yes to things you didn't want to do just to please others. Maybe you've suppressed your true thoughts and feelings to fit into a group or avoid conflict. Maybe you've stayed in a relationship or friendship that wasn't serving you because you feared rejection. In all these cases, you were placing your worth in the hands of someone else, letting their opinion of you determine how you felt about yourself. But here's the thing, when you compromise your self-worth for validation, you lose sight of who you truly are. You begin to measure your success not by how you feel about yourself, but by how others perceive you. This is not a healthy or sustainable way to live. It's an exhausting cycle of trying to meet other people's expectations and constantly fearing that you'll fall short. And the truth is, no matter how much you try, there will always be someone who doesn't approve of you, who doesn't like you, or who doesn't agree with your choices. If your self-worth is contingent upon pleasing them, you will always find yourself on shaky ground, unable to stand firm in your own value. True self-worth comes from within. It comes from recognizing your own unique strengths, acknowledging your flaws, and accepting yourself fully as you are. It comes from knowing that you are deserving of respect, love, and kindness simply because you are a human being with inherent dignity. When you cultivate this inner knowing, you stop seeking approval from others to validate your worth. Instead, you begin to honor yourself, to make decisions that reflect your values, and to pursue goals that align with your authentic desires. When you stop compromising your self-worth, something powerful happens. You become free. Free from the need to prove yourself to anyone, free from the weight of others' judgments, and free to live a life that is truly yours. You begin to attract people into your life who respect you for who you are, not for who you pretend to be. You build relationships based on mutual respect and understanding, not on the foundation of superficial validation. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to feel at peace with yourself, because your worth no longer depends on external forces that you cannot control. It's important to remember that self-worth isn't something you need to earn. It's not something that is gained by achieving certain milestones or by receiving praise from others. Your worth is intrinsic. It is inherent in your being. You don't have to work for it or prove it. You simply have to recognize it and honor it. When you do, you will find that the need for external validation begins to fade. Instead of looking outside for approval, you begin to trust in your own judgment, your own abilities, and your own worth. And that is when you truly step into your power. The next time you find yourself compromising your self-worth for validation, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly believe it aligns with who I am? Or am I doing this to gain approval from others? The answer will tell you everything you need to know about whether or not you are honoring your true self. In a world that often promotes conformity, it can be easy to fall into the trap of believing that love and respect come with conditions. We are frequently told that to receive love, we must change ourselves to fit someone else's expectations, or to gain respect, we must sacrifice parts of who we are. However, the essence of true love and respect lies in the opposite. They don't ask us to lose our identity. Instead, they encourage us to be unapologetically ourselves, to stand in our truth, and to love ourselves fully before we can truly give love to others. At the core of genuine love and respect is acceptance. True love doesn't demand that you mold yourself into someone you're not. It doesn't require you to compromise your values, your beliefs, or your individuality. Instead, it encourages you to show up as the person you are with all your strengths and flaws. Love, in its truest form, sees and appreciates you for who you are at your core without needing you to change or fit into any preconceived mold. The love that asks you to hide parts of yourself or to wear a mask is not real love. That's control, manipulation, or conditional affection, not love in its purest form. True respect never requires you to sacrifice your identity. Respect, when it is real, honors the uniqueness of who you are. It acknowledges your individuality, your experiences, and your voice. Respect doesn't demand that you conform to others' ideas of what you should be. It celebrates your authenticity and treats you with dignity, no matter what. If respect is conditional, if it is only given when you act in a certain way, when you conform to someone else's expectations, then it is not respect at all. It is simply a superficial form of acknowledgement that comes with strings attached. The problem arises when we begin to believe that love and respect are conditional. This belief leads many of us to compromise parts of ourselves in order to gain affection or approval. We make choices that go against our values, put our needs aside, and abandon parts of our identity, all in the hope that by doing so, we will earn someone's love or respect. We may suppress our true thoughts and feelings, change our appearance, or adopt different behaviors, all in an effort to be accepted. But what we fail to realize in those moments is that when we change ourselves to fit someone else's narrative, we lose sight of who we truly are. We trade our authenticity for the illusion of acceptance. And in doing so, we start to live for others instead of ourselves. The most painful part of this process is that we often don't recognize the cost of losing our identity until much later. We may convince ourselves that we are making these changes for the sake of love or respect. After all, isn't it worth it to adapt to make someone happy, to gain affection, or to avoid conflict? But the truth is, when we compromise our identity, we stop listening to our inner voice and instead start to follow the script that others have written for us. This disconnection can lead to feelings of emptiness, resentment, and even self-loathing, as we struggle to reconcile the person we've become with the person we truly are. True love, however, allows us to be free. It creates a safe space where we can express ourselves authentically without fear of rejection or judgment. It encourages us to grow, not by changing who we are, but by evolving into the best version of ourselves while still honoring our true essence. Love that is genuine gives us the strength to be vulnerable, to show up as we are, and to feel accepted for all that we are, including our imperfection. True respect is about seeing each other as equals, recognizing that each person's individuality is valuable. Respect doesn't seek to control or change the other person. Instead, it honors their autonomy, their experiences, and their unique perspectives. When respect is truly present, it allows both people to thrive independently while also supporting one another's growth. It never forces conformity. It encourages individuality. It's crucial to understand that real love and respect are not about ownership or possession. They don't require you to lose yourself to keep the other person happy, nor do they demand that you suppress your authentic self to gain approval. In fact, when you are in a relationship built on true love and respect, you should feel more empowered to be yourself. You should feel free to express your thoughts, pursue your passions, and honor your boundaries. Real love and respect don't stifle you, they lift you up. Unfortunately, many people have experienced relationships where love and respect were conditional. They've been told that they have to change in order to be loved or respected, or they've been made to feel that their worth is tied to what they can offer others. These experiences can be painful, and they often leave lasting scars. But it's important to recognize that those experiences were not a reflection of what true love and respect are meant to be. They were a reflection of manipulation, control, and insecurity. True love and respect come from a place of strength, not weakness, and they never seek to diminish or control the other person. When we understand that love and respect never ask us to lose our identity, we begin to see relationships differently. We stop settling for unhealthy dynamics where we are asked to be someone we're not, and we start to seek connections that allow us to be our true selves. We start to understand that the most fulfilling relationships are the ones where both people feel seen, heard, and respected as they are, without the need to change or conform to someone else's expectations. In these relationships, there is no need for pretense. There is no need to hide parts of ourselves out of fear of judgment or rejection. True love and respect allow us to show up in the world with confidence, knowing that we are valued not for the roles we play or the masks we wear, but for the people we are at our core. Your value is innate. It is not up for debate or sale. In a world that often equates worth with what we do, how we look, or what we own, it is easy to fall into the trap of believing that our value is something that needs to be earned, bought, or proven. We are constantly told that success is measured by external achievements, how much money we make, the status we hold, the way we present ourselves to the world. This external validation can make us feel as if our intrinsic worth is conditional, as if we must prove ourselves worthy of love, respect, or acceptance. But the truth is simple and clear. Your value is innate. It is not something that can be negotiated, diminished, or determined by others. It exists simply because you are here, and it is yours by birthright. The concept of innate value is powerful, yet so often misunderstood. People are frequently taught to tie their self-worth to external markers, whether it's academic success, social approval, professional accomplishments, or physical appearance. These are all things that society places value on, but they are fleeting and superficial. These external markers can change at any moment, and they often do. A job can be lost, relationships can change, bodies can age, and appearances can shift. If our value is tied solely to these things, what happens when they are no longer present or relevant? If your self-worth is based on what you do, what you have, or how you are seen by others, then you are at the mercy of a world that is constantly shifting. Realizing that your value is innate means accepting that it is not dependent on any of these external circumstances. Your worth is not something that needs to be earned or validated by others. You don't need to achieve a certain level of success to prove that you are worthy of love, respect, or dignity. Your value is inherent in your very existence. You are worthy simply because you are a human being with your own unique strength, experiences, and perspective. This understanding of worth removes the burden of having to prove yourself, and it empowers you to live life from a place of confidence and authenticity. Too often, people sell themselves short, whether consciously or unconsciously, because they don't fully understand their own intrinsic value. They may find themselves in situations or relationships where they are asked to compromise their beliefs, their boundaries, or their sense of self in order to be accepted or valued. They may give away parts of themselves in exchange for approval, love, or success. But in doing so, they are essentially agreeing to the idea that their worth is something to be bought, bargained for, or won. This can lead to a constant cycle of seeking external validation, never truly feeling secure in who they are, and constantly questioning their value. The reality is that when we rely on external validation to determine our worth, we open ourselves up to manipulation. We give others the power to decide what is valuable about us, and we are at their mercy. This is where self-respect becomes essential. When you understand that your value is innate and cannot be taken away or bargained for, you stop seeking validation from others. You stop measuring your worth by the opinions of others or by your achievements. You become free to live according to your own standards, driven by your own values and guided by your own internal compass. But understanding this doesn't mean we are immune to the pressures of the outside world. We will all face moments when we feel judged, overlooked, or undervalued. We will encounter people who try to measure our worth based on their own standards, or even try to convince us that we need to be something we're not in order to be valuable. In these moments, it is crucial to remind ourselves that our worth is not determined by others' opinions. It is not something that can be bought or sold, and it is certainly not something that can be taken away because someone doesn't see our value. It is also important to recognize that when we place our worth in the hands of others or in the achievements we've attained, we are setting ourselves up for frustration and disappointment. No one else can truly see the full picture of who you are. People will always judge based on limited perspectives, and no one will ever be able to fully measure your worth. Therefore, it is up to you to recognize and honor your own value. It's about having the courage to stand firm in your sense of self, even when others try to challenge it or when the world around you seems to question it. The beauty of knowing that your value is innate is that it allows you to show up in the world as your authentic self. You stop worrying about whether others approve of you because you know that you don't need anyone's approval to be worthy. This sense of inner confidence allows you to make choices that reflect your true self rather than decisions made in search of validation. When you embrace your inherent value, you set boundaries that protect your peace, you pursue goals that align with your heart, and you choose relationships that honor your worth. This doesn't mean that you should be indifferent to others or that you should be unkind or dismissive. It simply means that you should never sacrifice your sense of self or self-respect in the pursuit of external approval. When you understand that your worth is not up for debate, you stop trying to convince others of your value. Instead, you allow your actions, your integrity, and your authenticity to speak for themselves. People will either see your worth or they won't, but their inability to see it doesn't change the truth of who you are. The challenge comes in remembering this truth, especially in a world that constantly tells us to measure ourselves by standards that are often arbitrary or harmful. However, by embracing the fact that your value is innate, you free yourself from the constant need to prove, to compete, or to conform. You begin to understand that your worth is not something that can be taken away, and it is certainly not something that needs to be negotiated or sold to the highest bidder. When you live with the knowledge that your value is not negotiable, you begin to walk with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter the external circumstances, you are enough. You are valuable simply because you exist. This realization shifts your entire approach to life, relationships, and success, and it allows you to embrace yourself and your worth without reservation or fear. Stand firm in your truth and never sacrifice your dignity for anyone. In a world where external influences constantly bombard us, it can sometimes feel like our sense of self is up for grabs. Society, relationships, and circumstances often push us to change who we are, to bend in ways that fit certain expectations, or to sacrifice parts of ourselves for the sake of pleasing others. But the truth is, your dignity, the core of who you are, is sacred. It is not meant to be compromised in exchange for anyone's exploits, for anyone's approval or comfort. Standing firm in your truth means refusing to let go of your values, your identity, and your self-respect, no matter how much pressure is placed on you. Your truth is not negotiable. It is a reflection of your deepest beliefs, experiences, and the unique perspective you bring to the world. It is the foundation on which you build your life, and it is what makes you authentic. When you stand firm in your truth, you align your actions, words, and decisions with your values, regardless of what others may think or want from you. You remain true to yourself, regardless of how difficult or uncomfortable it might be. In a society that constantly tells us to conform, to adapt, or to compromise for the sake of fitting in or gaining favor, standing firm in your truth requires courage. It means not letting the noise of the world drown out your inner voice. But standing firm doesn't always come easily. It's easy to fall into the trap of people-pleasing, to compromise your values in an effort to gain approval, love, or acceptance. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to what others think of us, and so we begin to shape ourselves to fit their expectations. We sacrifice parts of ourselves, hide our true feelings, or agree to things we don't believe in just to avoid conflict or rejection. However, every time we do this, we chip away at our sense of self, and we begin to lose touch with who we truly are. The challenge comes when we're faced with situations where our dignity is tested, where we feel the pull to sacrifice our truth in order to keep the peace or to fit in. In these moments, it's important to remember that true peace comes from standing in your own integrity. Compromising your dignity for the sake of comfort or approval doesn't bring lasting peace. You may convince yourself that you're doing it for the right reasons, but deep down you know you are betraying yourself. This internal dissonance can eat away at your sense of self-worth and leave you feeling empty. When you stand firm in your truth, you honor your authenticity. You acknowledge that your beliefs, your feelings, and your values matter. You respect yourself enough to not allow others to dictate who you should be or how you should behave. This doesn't mean you ignore the needs or feelings of others, but it means that you never lose sight of your own needs, boundaries, and worth. You are not a chameleon meant to blend into every environment, nor are you a tool to be used by others for their own gain. You are a whole person, deserving of respect, love, and understanding as you are. Standing firm in your truth requires confidence. The confidence that you are enough just as you are and that your worth is not determined by others' perceptions. It means not seeking validation or approval from outside sources, but instead finding peace and security within yourself. This doesn't mean you won't face opposition or judgment. You will. People may not always understand your choices, and some may even try to persuade you to change. But when you are rooted in your truth, you become impervious to these outside pressures. You realize that their opinions are just that, opinions, and they do not have the power to define your worth or your path. There is an immense strength that comes from standing firm in your truth. It is a strength that comes from a deep sense of self-respect and self-awareness. When you refuse to sacrifice your dignity, you send a powerful message to the world that you are not for sale, that you are not willing to compromise your essence for anyone or anything. This message resonates with the people who matter. Those who will respect you for who you truly are, not for who you pretend to be or for the image you project. Authentic relationships are built on mutual respect for one another's truths. And when you stand firm in yours, you create space for genuine, meaningful connections. Moreover, when you stand firm in your truth, you empower others to do the same. Your decision to honor your dignity serves as an example, inspiring those around you to also respect themselves and refuse to sacrifice their own truth. It creates a ripple effect that encourages a culture of authenticity, where people are free to be themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. This is the foundation for healthy, thriving communities, where individuals feel safe to express themselves, pursue their passions, and live their lives without hiding parts of themselves. It's also important to understand that standing firm in your truth doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible. It doesn't mean shutting yourself off from growth or new experiences. On the contrary, being firm in your truth means that you are grounded in your values and beliefs, but you remain open to learning, evolving, and expanding your understanding of the world. Your truth may shift and evolve over time, but as long as it is rooted in your authenticity, it will always serve you well. Standing firm is not about stubbornness or refusal to change. It's about being anchored in your sense of self while remaining open to the world around you.